At the end of 2022, we bought this house in Portugal. We'd spent all our working lives in England and raised two lovely daughters and were quite content. So why did we move to Portugal?
It's not because I'm Portuguese. We always had a dream of a small farm or a small holding, in addition to an outdoor life.
And we weren't getting any younger, and so if we were going to do something about it, it had to be then. We would have been happy to stay in England, but not for our budget, unfortunately.
So we knew we wanted to be in Europe. So we looked in France and we looked also in Portugal. We found that in France we could get more land for our money.
France was actually affordable for us, but when we weighed up the pros and cons, language was going to be more of a difficulty for us. So we looked more earnestly in Portugal.
So we are in the rural area. Our next big city is about an hour away, which is Viseu. And then Coimbra as well is about an hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then we've got Aveiro, which is the coastal town. That's about an hour and a half. So we're really inland down here a little bit.
I would say that house prices in Portugal are about 2/3 the cost of the UK. So that for us was a good reason to sell up and move to Portugal. And that way we could be mortgage free. One of the main reasons we chose Portugal was because of the climate. It's said to have a Mediterranean climate, even though it's not on the Med. But there's so many days of sunshine here. I've seen that it averages out to be over 300 days per year of sunshine.
Similar to the climate in California.
I think the weather in California is great, yeah, because I was there in some of the winter months as well, and there were a lot of sunshiny days, yeah.
The temperature yesterday was 36 Celsius, and sometimes can reach up to about 40, very rarely 42.
Very rarely 40, in fact.
Very rarely 40, yes.
In our region,
Yeah.
it's not as hot as some of the more extreme places. But one of the great things about this climate is the growing season is extended. We can grow lots of things if we plant at the right time of year, and we definitely have larger size crops.
Yeah. Are you impressed?
Look at the size of this courgette. It's nearly turning into a marrow. We definitely have larger produce here than we would have done in the UK, where there's not quite so much sunshine. It's a lot milder than in the UK. You don't get as severe winters. Further inland, you may get one or two extremes, summer and winter, but as a whole, it's much more pleasant to be in Portugal year round than it is in some of the more northern European countries. We like walking and cycling and love going to the beach, and Portugal's great for outdoor living. We love getting out and about, and there are some great walking routes in the countryside, in the hills and in the valleys. We especially like the paths that take us along riverbanks and the numerous river beaches. If we remember to take our swimwear with us, we can stop off for a cooling dip. We also like to cycle, and there's lots of opportunities for this. Some of these cycling paths have been converted from old disused railway tracks, and they're really great because they're not too steep. You often find lots of people going for walks there or cycling.
When the weather is right and we have time, we love to go to the beach. But the water can be a bit chilly because it's the Atlantic.
Yeah, it can be a little bit chilly, but if you go down to the Algarve, generally the water there is a little bit warmer.
We don't tend to go as far as that. We've got great beaches near us.
Yeah, we love the beaches as they are. In the white sandy beaches, some of them have lovely dunes as well.
You can also buy fresh fish from the fishermen.
We've done that a good few times.
Yeah. In the summer, there are many festivals and markets for all sorts of things. Markets for chestnuts, for cheeses, for wine, for casseroles, for bread, shellfish and beer.
I like the sound of that one. That's a good one.
So there's always things to do in Portugal in terms of going out and mingle with the community.
Yeah, and I think the summer even more so. I think in practically every town and village there's a festival held. Portugal has great cuisine. We love the food and drink here. Of course, everybody's heard about Portuguese sardines, whether that's in a tin or cooked freshly on a barbecue. We also love the barbecue chicken or chicken piri piri.
Other great things that are cheap as well in Portugal is the wine, beer. You can get a decent bottle wine for less than the 3 euros. You have to choose well. Obviously, for 10 euros, you can get a much better bottle of wine. To save more money yet is to try to buy directly from the producer, small producers. You can buy 20 liters or 50 liters. If you're buying like that, we could get it at about €1 a liter or less.
Which red wine do you prefer?
My favorite wine comes from an open bottle. I prefer the wines from this area. So this area is the down area of wine. So it's DAO.
The other thing that is really good in Portugal is we're talking about, we believe that the food is very good.
Oh yeah, the
With some
great
very nice
cheeses.
Portuguese cheeses. One that's fairly local to here, about 2 hours drive away, is from the Serra da Estrela Mountains, and that's made with ewe's milk. Most cafes will serve you a tosta mister, and basically that's a ham and cheese toasty, and they're quite inexpensive as well. So we often get a tosta mister when we go out to a cafe.
Yes. Or pastry with Maya de Leite, coffee with milk. In the Esplanada, which is great as well.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing about the outdoor living, isn't it? Because there's more hours of sunshine here, then that's why you can often find people sitting in esplanadas.
Yes. So for us, based on what we consume and use, to live here, the bare minimum we need to have is 120 euros just to pay tax and gas,
Yeah,
electricity,
to run the
and water.
household. To run the
Yeah.
household. Yeah. If you go and want to eat out, it can be very, very inexpensive here. In fact, the cheapest we've probably seen is €8, and for €8 you'd get a main dish, plus you'd get a coffee at the end and about half a jar of wine
Yeah.
if you want wine, or
Or
you could
beer,
choose something else.
or water, or whatever.
Yeah. So all of that for €8. I think that's pretty good value. According to the 2024 Global Peace Index, Portugal ranks as the seventh safest country in the world.
And we do feel safe in Portugal at all sorts of hours.
Yeah, it's true. Generally, if you go out and about, you don't feel threatened. You feel it's quite safe to walk alone in the evenings, particularly for a woman. I've always felt very safe out here.
And for a man too. I feel very safe here
Good.
with a woman besides me.
Yeah.
Also, the Global Retirement Index ranks Portugal as one of the top countries for retirement worldwide.
As an English person living in Portugal, that the Portuguese have been very friendly to me. They're kind, I find them very generous and willing to help most of the time.
You've got so much more to say about. Yes, I know Portugal from north to south, and as I know many other countries in Europe and Africa and other places. And I can put Portugal as one of the friendliest of people I come across. Obviously, I'm saying this as a Portuguese and as an experienced traveler.
Yeah, but we have found that the people are particularly good when it comes to somebody who's trying to communicate. I remember the first time that I came to Portugal, I was traveling with a female friend, and we're talking decades ago, long before the times of mobile phones or apps that you could use to help you translate. And our vehicle broke down, and we were at the side of a road. It was very early in the morning and it had just started to come light, and this family of farm workers were coming along, presumably on the way to go and do some harvesting in one of the fields, and they couldn't speak English, we couldn't speak Portuguese, but they went out of the way to try and understand what the problem was, and then they went off and told us to they'd be back, and they did. They came back and they'd managed to arrange a mechanic, and in addition to that they managed to point out to us and drew a map of where we could find accommodation. And that was my first impression of the generosity and kindness of the Portuguese people. There are flights to Porto, there are flights to Lisbon and to the Algarve. So for us, if we wish to go back to the UK to visit family and friends, it's relatively straightforward. We normally go from Porto and up towards Manchester, and the flights only take about 2.5 hours, which we think is great. And if you use some of the economy airlines, you can be paying less than £100 or €100 per flight.
The roads in Portugal are quite good and safe. You can go from north to south, east to west, or the other way around, and across it. There's some.
Many other directions in between. It's not just north and south.
The road takes you where you want to go.
Yeah, there's pretty good infrastructure.
Yeah.
You can go on lots of great motorways here. Some of them are toll roads, of course, so there is a fee to them. There's also some good train services, definitely to and from the major cities. Portugal has a very good national health system, and if you become resident in Portugal, you are entitled to access to it. Medications are relatively cheap compared to other countries. You may have to pay a very small fee if you go to the emergencies at the hospital or to see your doctor. But in general, it's got a very good reputation for healthcare.
So those are our main reasons for choosing Portugal.
But I'm sure some of you watching can list many other great reasons too.